I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. The bar is back. Springtime, you know what that means. It's tax season, so the bar is back. I know a lot of you guys were asking about that. I've stocked up a little bit, a couple of new bottles of premium sipping tequila here. I'm going to need it. I was just on the phone a couple days ago with my accountant getting some of my tax stuff prepped for him and sending him all my income statements from both my brokerage as well as TD and Royal Bank Direct with my investment accounts. And he got back to me with a little bit of a chuckle and said, another good year for you. And it was. Every year as a realtor, I tend to keep earning a bit more every year. But the other thing, of course, my investment income keeps going up and up as well. Part of it is that, you know, the companies I hold, the high quality names I hold, the majority of them pay me a very nice quarterly dividend, and in some cases a monthly dividend. And I've talked about this before. You know, the companies I hold, the Apples, the Costcos, the Canadian banks, you know, they keep not only paying me a dividend, but increasing that dividend every single year like clockwork. My average dividend increase right now runs probably 7 to 10%. So in other words, if I had $100,000 of dividend income coming in 2021, I have close to $110,000 last year. So another 10K. And that doesn't include, of course, I'm always putting in a fair bit of money every year. I'm still in my accumulation stage. So that keeps going up. So every year I pay more tax on that because a lot of that is outside of my RRSP. You can't shelter much money in Canada here. TFSA and RRSP, those are maxed. They make up a very small percentage of my overall investment portfolio. But so, you know, he's prepping me. It's going to be another record year, another record check I'm going to be cutting to CRA. I already pay quarterly installments being self-employed, and then I've also always have to top it up at the end of the year. On that note, you know, listen, I've often said here, I am a proud Canadian. I am blessed to live in one of the greatest countries in the world. They give us every opportunity here for success. People would give their right arm to become Canadians and live in this country and this incredible city we're in Vancouver here. So don't get me wrong, I'm happy to cut them a check, you know, but it hurts. The real thing that hurts for me about paying my taxes is not so much paying my taxes. I'm a proud Canadian. It goes to people that aren't earning or aren't in the situation I am in life. It's just that I think the governments waste so much of my tax dollars. That's the thing that really hurts me. You guys know, you know, all governments, no matter what they are, what party they represent, are all completely inept. They are complete putzes. Most of them could never cut it in the private sector, you know, and that's why they get into politics. So they waste away the billions that we put in every year in tax revenue, and that's really what hurts the most for me in keeping the bar here. So let me just do a couple of topics today. Was on my Twitter feed a couple of weeks ago, and you remember that book that I kind of panned about 6 or 7 years ago called The Wealthy Renter? And at the time, it came out right around the same time my book, Along for the Ride, had come out. And we were both, at the same time, pretty much top sellers on Amazon.ca under the real estate and investing category. And I came across an interview, this guy, and he was a smart guy. He was a CPA, I believe. He was on BNN Bloomberg doing a little review of his book, promoting it. And I had done a review at that time saying The Wealthy Renter. I don't know of any wealthy renters. I know I'm privileged enough to know a lot of my friends, colleagues, associates, co-workers that are extremely wealthy people. I don't know any of them that rent. I have yet to meet a very high-level multi-millionaire who rents his home. I'm sure they're out there, but I don't know any of them. But no, I had said at that time, this guy I thought was a bit of an opportunist. I mean, sure, I'm sure there are some wealthy renters out there. The whole premise of his book is that I rent and then I save the difference, or I invest the difference. And I said at that time, this premise has been around for a long time. It kind of went out of favor here for the last decade or so, with our record low interest rates at 1.3, 1.4% variable rates. But now that interest rates, the variable has gone back up to 5.5%, you know, this rent and save the difference is kind of rearing its ugly head again. You know, my opinion on it is don't fall for it, folks. For a couple of things I want to debunk with something like that about this rent and then save the difference. First thing is, we all know the guy that wrote this book knows, everybody does, that the little that you do save, the difference between renting versus owning, isn't all that much. The tough part, as I've often said, is getting the down payment in place, getting your foot in the door, saving for that down payment. Once you're in, even at today's interest rates, the spread is not that much different. And it definitely, I don't know, this book really has been blown apart after he wrote it. Interest rates completely went down to the basement here. So it really made no sense when variables were under 3%. Still doesn't now. But we all know that if there is any difference there, any savings from renting versus owning, people don't invest it or save it. They spend it. And the other thing is, of course, I've said many times that most Canadians, I'm going to say 90%, don't have a clue how to manage their money or even invest or save their money. They don't. The proof is out there. Only half of all Canadians even have a TFSA account opened. And those that do, the average balance in a typical Canadian's TFSA is something like $3,000, when it should be several $100,000 if they would have started from day one and maxed it out. That's what mine's at. So they're not going to save the difference or invest the difference. Most of them are going to spend it on food, on life, on car payments, on vacation, on Canucks tickets. So there's the little difference there might be there is not going to be invested. And again, the other thing is that most Canadians just do not want to spend the 100 hours or 200 hours that I often suggest in learning how to get that money working for you. So it's a lost cause. The second thing is most people that rent and they cling to that belief that, hey, renting is the way to go, have never really stared themselves in the mirror. But by that I mean has never really taken all the numbers and crunched them. So the first thing you should do is, what are you currently paying for rent? Well, if you're in Vancouver now, you're paying $2,700, $2,800 for a very basic one bedroom. So what's that? $30,000 a year, let's call it. So if you're going to become a lifetime renter, multiply that by 25 years and then index it to inflation. Do the math on it. We're probably talking, I don't know, $1.5 million over the next 25 years to rent a simple one-bedroom condo. $1.5 million is shocking. That's why most people don't want to face the numbers. Look at what they're paying for rent, multiply it by 20, 25, 30, 40 years, how long they're going to, depending on their age, and then index it to inflation. It's incredible. So that's $1.5 million that is down the drain. The other thing what I've talked about many times here are the intangibles of home ownership and why there is no such thing as a wealthy renter. Anybody that is wealthy, successful, multimillionaire has a lot of stuff going on for them in their life. They're self-employed, business owners, professionals. They don't want to live like a gypsy. They're not going to rent a two-bedroom condo in Cole Harbour and then have to move every year or two because the owner's going to sell it. They want to be able to buy a home, customize it to their needs, put a home office in there, fix the home up. You can't do any of this with a rental property. You're living on borrowed time. But do the math on putting down 20%, borrowing today at, let's call it 5.5%, and the capital gains that you can enjoy over the next 20, 25 years. In 25 years, that home will be fully paid off, and you will have a, I don't know, 1.5, 2, 2.5, $3 million home that has grown completely tax-free. It's the only tax advantage we get here in Canada is that principal residence exemption. At the end of that interview with BNN on the guy that wrote the book, and again, the guy sounds like a nice enough guy. He was a smart guy. He was an accountant. The best part of it was the host asked him, so you rent, of course, and invest the difference. What do you invest in? He corrected him. No, I don't rent. I own my home in Toronto. Of course he does. It makes no sense, but people fall for this. It's a way to sell some books for people. But again, any savings you get, people spend it. They don't invest it. The other thing is they don't know how to invest it. They don't want to do the time to learn how to invest their money. The principal resident exemption, the not living like a gypsy, the comfort blanket you get, and the security you get of home ownership. It can't be beat. Interest rates would have to get back up. We're nowhere near even opening the debate, in my opinion, but I've seen some stuff on Twitter here about it. Now that interest rates are at 5.5%, 5.6%, you got to hit interest rates back up to double digits. And even then, back in the 80s and early 90s, it still didn't make sense if you really crunched the numbers. Because again, most people don't save the difference. They spend the difference. Final thing I'll just say here, another thing that people talk about now that interest rates have gone up is should I pay my mortgage off early? Now that I'm paying 5.5%, maybe I should start paying down my mortgage early. Well, keep in mind, you never want to do that on an investment unit. Investment unit, let those ride. All the interest is tax deductible, and you need every tax deduction you can get. Use the leverage, use the deductions. But on a principal residence, for sure, now that interest rates have gone up 8 hikes, some people are talking about paying down that mortgage early, and absolutely, it can totally make sense in some circumstances. For a lot of people, like these people, the picture I just painted, that don't know how to invest, don't know how the stock market works, don't know how index investing or dividend growth stocks work, then maybe it might be the right step for you. There's a myriad of things. I would have to sit down, which I'm not going to do, but you would have to sit down with someone for hours to figure out their financial situation. How old are they? How much is the mortgage? How long is the term on the current mortgage? Is it locked in for another year, another 2 years? What other assets do you have? How much is in your RSP and your TFSA? How much is in your cash brokerage accounts? How much have you saved total for retirement? Do you have a pension at work? There's a myriad of questions you have to ask yourself. So for some people, now that interest rates have gone up, it might make sense. For I can tell you, for me, it hasn't gotten to that point yet. I've got a variable rate right now currently on my principal residence. I don't have a large mortgage, but at 5.5%, for me anyways, I can beat that over the long term anyways, by investing that difference. So why pay it down at 5.5%? Give you an example I often use. I can buy Bell Canada right now, and it's going to yield me about 6.3 or 6.4%. That dividend keeps growing every year from Bell Canada. On top of that, you're not going to hit any home runs with Bell Canada. It's an orphans and widows stock. It kind of slowly creeps up. There's going to be some years there where Bell Canada might go up 10 or 15% in a real good year. And then there's some years where it might go down 5%. But I would say the annualized rate of return on Bell Canada, capital gains wise, over the next 15 or 20 years, you might eke out 3%. And I'm probably being super conservative on that, probably a bit more than that. But let's just call it 3%. Well, 3% on top of a 6.5% dividend, now you're cooking. You're with 9.5% return. If your mortgage rate's at 5.5%, you can still do better there. But again, that's me. That's, a pretty experienced investor, knows what to do with the money, knows some safe ways to get some pretty good returns to beat that current interest rate that I'm paying on my mortgage. But everybody isn't there. So for some people, it might make sense. I saw a thing that came across my desk here. I think it was on Bloomberg. It was a mortgage consultant. The numbers she was using were kind of saying, she was for paying down the mortgage. And the number she used was a 4% interest rate over the next 20 years. Because interest rates go up and down, as you guys know, but she used 4%, which is pretty favorable. I probably would have used something like 4.5 or 5 on a 30-year amortization. Well, 32-year amortization I wouldn't recommend for people. Stick to 25. On a 30-year, it's going to take down your monthly payments, but you should do the math on it. Go to calculator.net, look at their mortgage calculator, and look at how much interest you're paying with that extra 5 years. It's shocking. But paying down a mortgage, a 30-year on a 4%, again, for a guy like me, I could do far better than that in just letting that mortgage ride and investing the difference. But for some people, it makes sense, absolutely, if you're not all that financially literate. So it's all over the road, but you're starting to see a lot of people saying paying down those mortgages early now that interest rates have gone up. It all depends on your situation and how comfortable you are and how experienced an investor you are. But Renting and Saving the Difference, that Wealthy Renter book, there's still some people on Twitter who are saying, oh, it's a great book. I'm sure it's a great book. But it doesn't make any sense it just doesn't. If you do the numbers, which most people just don't want to face the music on, $1.5 million is what you're going to spend just to rent the most basic one-bedroom condo over the next 25 years, maybe more. How are you going to make that up? On top of the fact that all the growth, all the capital gains in your principal residence is completely tax-free. It's minted more multimillionaires in this country than all other sources combined, and I can attest to that personally. So, and then let's throw in the dozens of intangibles to home ownership, the pride of ownership. You can fix the property up. You can customize the property to your own needs. You're not waiting for that phone call from your landlord and you're moving every year or two. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.